agrees with that as well.
Sure, and I did talk to Terry at length about personnel and some positions. I guess my concern is if moving forward with personnel immediately, do you want to wait until the new town manager comes in to, I mean, he may come in with ideas of organization and things that Terry, being in this position as long as he has, you get very siloed in how you think about operations. And
Well, I think there are 3 positions that were at Public Works, and those people, for whatever reason, left and have not been refilled. So if
So there
that's
was-
true, I would be in favor of looking at filling those 3 positions as soon as possible. Because my understanding would be, those are not new positions.
Well, or I
And
think.
they may not be in the budget
I think
for
we need to have
18, but-
conversation with the Public Works Director, because it's my understanding there are some potential candidates for maybe some positions that I don't think we would want to wait on, because we would lose the opportunity perhaps. So I think we just need to have that conversation, see what it means to us, and then we can make a determination from there as to if we want to move forward or we want to delay that process. But I would hate to delay something and we miss some opportunities.
okay.
Especially if it's positions that they
Yes.
already had.
Well, there's
I see
3.
your point, if it's new
Mhm, new
positions, we
positions.
need to look at the
Well,
current
there's 3.
structure.
He had 2 people that he promoted, and then
Okay.
there was, and that was Paul and Charwin, and then somebody was fired, and then the person below him ended up in there. And I guess, I think, and I don't, my role when I've acting in the past is it's always been a fine line with town board or the council being involved in personnel decisions
Right.
and making some of those directions. So I want to make sure
Right.
I step correctly and not get myself in trouble or allow you guys to overstep bounds as far as personnel decisions.
But I don't think that's personnel who are already in place. I see it differently upon directing folks, you know what I mean, or finding
Okay.
absences in place in order to
Okay.
make sure we have departments running the way that they need to run and operate.
Okay, so I can tell you in the past, and this is how we require all staff to do this when they ask for staff, they have to run an analysis. I mean, I know if it's a replacement, so I think the one position that was the mechanic makes sense. The 2 people that he promoted without thinking about how to fill those underneath should require an analysis and information. We can't, I mean, we all of us have to submit information to HR every time we want to replace someone or fill a new position. And then it's analysis of warrants, why I need it, what it's going to fill, how much time it's going to take, what are they going to do, who are they going to report to, is there a succession plan? I mean, there's a lot of points that we ask all staff to do. So Terry in the past has just asked for people without running through these warrants. So I think from my perspective, it's important to me that Terry can make the ask, but I think it's really important that he still meet the basic requirements that the rest of us do when we are asking for personnel. So that's what I would ask. But it is just an ask.
Well, one of the position that got fired,
Mhm.
whatever position
It
that
was a
that was.
mechanic.
Mechanic.
Mhm.
I would think that there was a reason for that, thus
Mhm.
meaning that's a position that really is lacking and needing to be
They
filled.
hired a part-time person to help in there, and there's also a seasonal that has helped take in, so it's a really broad issue, and, I mean, Public Works is definitely, I mean, I know that we've grown a lot and they feel they have not filled their staff, but again, the personnel request needs to come. I mean, the request, more than just a verbal, I need, but
I agree.
you need to give
Right.
us the warrants and you need to give us the analysis so that we have backup and something to say, yes, we checked every avenue and yes, you do need this position. Because like I said, the operations change and things change quite a bit. We all have had to change our operations in order to meet the needs and demands of our community based on the number of staff we currently have.
I think that process is good. I would still say if there's a position that is technically open,
Mhm.
then maybe we don't need to go through that process.
So potentially
Maybe
that,
maybe the
Yeah.
mechanical
So
position.
I'll have to talk to
But the
Sharon to
others,
see
I
where
agree
those are, yeah.
strongly that, and that's just fair to every
Mhm.
department also.
I agree, so
You have
like
to have a process,
if
right.
Jess resigned, then we would just replace her. So let me
Okay.
go through and I will check
Okay.
on those things so I
Yeah.
can make sure that we're meeting all of our requirements, but,
I would throw out the organizational structure that we had 6 months ago,
before the,
before people
Study
started
and all
getting
that,
sent over
yeah.
there or brought back
yeah,
or whatever.
agreed 100%.
I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but I think that that was something that the board collectively
Look at
liked
and we were
was.
comfortable with that?
'Cause-
Okay, so
'cause
see what positions are
It
missing
was,
there.
what, 3 months ago that Kelly sat down with all of us and went over the organizational flow charts.
Right,
And I'm talking about pre those coming out.
right, yeah,
with that.
before they tried to put me over IT, right? That?
Right, so, yeah, and so I think we want to stay at the current, at the old
Yes,
structure
okay, got
until we get through a new, and that's, I've shared that with Cheryl Lynn as well.
Excellent,
We're not-
okay,
we're
so
not
good, so I
moving
can get
ahead
with her.
Any other
Right,
these
right.
moves in
Because
positions
the
or
person
not
needs an
that were.
opportunity.
Makes
Give her
sense, I like it,
perspective.
okay, thank you,
Right.
great
Whoever
idea.
reported to whoever, wherever they office 6
Let's-
months ago, whatever.
We're doing
that's
that,
where-
okay,
Yeah.
good plan, thank you, I feel better, because I'm like, he's asking for so much, I don't know how to make this happen,
No,
but
that's why I just wanted to call it what I think we were kind of.
makes
trying
sense, you
to-
drilled,
Okay.
Say
you
there.
took my
So we
messy
still want him
thoughts.
to come in January and talk to us?
Yes, I think we
Yes,
need
I
to
think
do,
that's
well,
good.
hopefully he'll have what he needs in place
Right.
to run
Yeah.
the
You
conversation.
know, if we have that, and then for his, probably.
If he's
his-
ready, I mean,
Yeah,
he'll
he's-
float it through Patty, and Patty will be able to determine what, if he's got enough to have a work session on it, or it's still needing, you know,
We
some.
need some more, we need more information.
The one caveat I would say is how, with Dennis's plan transitioning to the water resources emphasis,
No.
and
No.
so that's just on hold.
Yeah,
for
we're
now?
on
Okay.
hold, yeah, when I talked to I talked to Christy right after I got appointed as acting, and I said, how do you want to move forward with this? And we both kind of said that, we don't need all this
Okay, so that's
upheaval
fine,
and
just to
change
leave
right
that on
now.
hold.
We've got too
until-
many
Like I say, basically what it was 6 months ago
Okay.
before.
Yep, so we're
everything
just, we're gonna go like that for now, and like I said, I think when the new town manager comes in and you appoint him, hopefully he'll come with some operational and structural
her.
ideas. Amen, sister.
Well, that's one of my big hopes
So
is
do we
we
need to
find
bring
somebody who's
planning
had
in?
the.
We
Yeah,
have a guest
sure.
here, and I don't want to keep her
Yes.
waiting too much longer.
I did want to bring up one more thing, work session before we get into that, I'm excited about that. With the change in administration, do you need to reach out to Rocky Mountain Sports Park, the mill, or any of the major projects to make certain that they know we are still excited?
have.
Have you done it?
I have had all those conversations with Brinkman,
Brinkman's,
with Ocean, Blue Ocean, and yes.
Great
all-
Western.
All of the Great
Okay,
Western,
So
all
not
of
making
those
commitments
folks.
to incentives, but
All
I
of those
want them to know
folks
that we're still.
have been assured it's
supporting
business
Business
as
as
usual,
usual.
continue to have meetings or schedule or, yes.
Okay, good deal. All systems are go. We're ready for lunch.
Hopefully.
If there's, yeah, go ahead, Sarah, absolutely.
When?
You're fine.
That's just Ken and I.
We had,
That's just Ken and I.
That's when we did decide.
Yeah, yeah.
I had written down now, this dinner is at 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock
sit in the comfy chair.
on Monday, so I can make it to that.
Okay. So it is 6:07 and we will start our work session this evening for Monday, December 11th. And this evening, we're going to continue our housing policy discussion. And tonight we have housing policy options. And we have our guests this evening, the City of Greeley Assistant City Manager, Becky Safrick. Thank you for coming. Sure. And presenting this. Maybe we should go around and introduce ourselves to Ms. Safrick this evening.
Cindy Showerman, town board member.
I think she knows me.
Oh, I know.
Ivan Adams.
That may be good or bad.
Well, it's probably bad, but then.
I was gonna say, we ought to clarify how.
Ken Bennett with your town board.
On the Pooter Trail Board.
Oh, okay.
There you go, Patty Garcia, acting town manager and town clerk.
I just want to say thank you very much for coming as well, Becky. I'm Scott with planning.
Ian McCarter, town attorney.
Paul Rennemeyer, town board.
And Christy Melendez.
Yeah, good.
So, and we have Carla.
Yeah, we do.
Hello. Malone?
Did you get that in there? We're looking at.
Malone.
Yes, and
Keep
Becky actually is my former boss.
Yeah.
Oh.
We can tell lots of cross.
Were you Ivan's former boss?
No, but I got some great stories about him if you want to know. So.
I got plenty, thank you.
We actually would like to know, yeah, so maybe later.
We don't have time.
Cameras are running. Cameras are running. Yeah, cameras on.
Patty, quick question while
Yes.
being set up. I'd seen something on one of the online forums about something with a regional transportation, like bus service between Greeley and Fort Collins was gonna be coming through Windsor. Is that
Scott, you wanna
on
talk
our
about
radar?
that?
Actually, Carla would be the one to talk about it, but she's been sitting on, I guess, a working group that's been, it was started with the Greeley Evans Transit Group, and they just had a work session with City of Greeley, so we may have all the experts right here to give us an update on that. But yeah, they're gonna have 3 stops is what they're looking tentatively at planning.
It would be
in
just
Windsor.
a test.
Right,
It's a
right.
test.
Okay.
It was brought to the MPO as a
Yeah.
test model to see if
Yeah,
it
they-
warrants ridership, right?
Right, they did a survey of all of the communities, and there was enough of a group of both students and faculty from both UNC and CSU in the Windsor core area that they think it justifies bus stops, so.
They were out
Again, I would have them,
yesterday.
Carla and Becky probably know more about that than I do, so. It was just a quick update about the Greeley Evans Transit, the bus route through town. So,
Right? Yeah, it's being studied. We just did a presentation to our council on the options for the regional program, and it looks we're very enthused about figuring out ways that we can do that, because it just makes so much sense to get people off the roads so they can all travel safely and quickly.
And Will sent me that package, so I can forward it to everyone.
Awesome.
yeah, I think they'll be coming before town board sometime probably in 2018, so.
Right.
Okay.
We're gonna have a little session about it.
So still kind of in the studying, planning.
Early recon
Okay.
stage, but it looks really promising in terms of at least the numbers. It's kind of at a point where it looks like it makes sense for us to talk about this and see what we can do to make it financially make sense too. And
Okay.
Sit down, relax if you want to.
well, I'm gonna say I'm a little better standing up if you
Okay,
don't
all
mind.
right, okay.
One of those pacer kind of people. So I'll pass around, I'm sure what you've got ahead of time, but I'm going to share with you both a copy of the PowerPoint and then a flyer about our program. And if it's all right with you, I'll just kind of walk through the information and get you started on our program. This is, I've just updated the information as of this month, so there's 1 or 2 smaller pieces that might be outdated, but so, I think you're probably looking at this for the very same reason that most people do, that home ownership is so important to all of us in terms of what it does to stabilize a community and give options for folks. So we've done, the same kind of recon. Much of this comes out of boards of realtors and lenders, but there's lots of studies that show that you get a more cohesive community when people can find housing in that place where they work and enjoy their families. There's improved health and safety. This is seen in lots of different avenues around public safety. Actually, interesting that higher academic achievement is also tied to home ownership, as is a stronger economy. So in generic and large matters, home ownership is a good thing for communities to have. If you have really transitory communities where people are not engaged or staying or living there, then you don't get quite as many benefits. The City of Greeley's comprehensive plan also supports the neighborhood, what we call complete neighborhoods. So these are neighborhoods where you live and learn and work and play. It's got the services there that help you live in your community completely. And so from that standpoint, where we can create neighborhoods that make it easier for you to bike or walk to work or to school, that you have live-work opportunities, it really creates just an overall better situation. So how this began in Greeley is that we have an area that we call the University District. This is, of course, a college community. We wanted to see what we could do to strengthen the area around the college. It has a fair number of rentals, but we also have a lot of historic neighborhoods in this area. And so we were interested in creating a little better sense of place around our college community. And so some of the things that we've done in the last couple of years is we've created a new 8th Avenue corridor vision. A lot of folks in Greeley, you sometimes think that the university and the downtown were miles and miles apart. They're 6 blocks apart, but they sometimes feel like this are identical because of how they connect. So we created an 8th Avenue focus. If you've been in Greeley's downtown, you know it's got more landscaping, artwork, and we created some billboard signs, a lot of different things. I won't read through all these, but a number of different things to create a real sense of place around this university neighborhood that we have. One of the things that came out of our public meetings is people said, well, we'd like to see more home ownership in and around these university areas. So we started doing some exploring about how that might work, and we said, well, what would be the purpose of having this sort of a promotion or this sort of effort? And a couple of things is one, increasing home ownership within the district will reinforce the university district as an area within which people would want to live. In other words, a destination area. It would foster, we think, the development and maintenance of healthy neighborhoods. When people live in an area together, they tend to take better care of their properties, they tend to have more improvements that happen. We think we could attract a higher caliber workforce to an area where they can, we've got major employers in this area, we think that would help. Certainly property improvements. Also the duration of residency. When people live in an area for a longer period of time, they tend to also have more investment. Some things that are a little harder return on investment are hard to do if you're going to make a big improvement to your home, you're going to want to live there long enough to make sure that it's got a return on that investment for you. So duration was important, stabilizing the economic development with the residential market, reducing absentee ownership. Again, in the college community, we really wanted to reduce the number of folks that are not living, they own property but they don't live there because they, again, don't have the same investment. And then promoting walkable neighborhoods and areas that you can walk to work. We thought about this some more and thought, well, what would be in it for employers if we had some kind of a program? And we thought, well, this gives you another chance to say, this is how I've invested in my community. It provides an additional employee recruitment tool. If you come to my community, we, by the way, have this program that would help you perhaps buy a home, reduce the employee's time to travel for work. We were thinking in areas particularly where there's sensitivity to emergency response. It's good to have people live close to where they work. Obviously, we just got done talking about transportation, all this are on the road going everywhere, that's helpful. Helping employees feel more connected to not only the university, but the medical center in the city, that there's ways for us to have a symbiotic relationship between everyone. We know for certain that people that live in a community and own property there tend to give where they live. So things like your charitable organizations, United Ways, things like that increase when people have ownership and own property in the same community. We think a collegial culture makes sense, and then increasing profiles of these businesses as major parts of our community. So if you have all that in place, how do you tell if you've made a difference? How are we going to measure the impact? And that's where we felt, and of course, if you're ever dealing with academics, we measure everything. So we thought some of the things we want to measure if we did embark on this kind of program is the number of employees who actually participated, what the value of the homes were, whether increased property values resulted, whether we really did see length of residency increase, if we could see reduction in code compliance in some of these target neighborhoods, also whether we saw new building permits being issued so that they really are investing in the homes that they're buying, and improve the perceptions in the neighborhood areas, everything from safety to cleanliness to the quality of the neighborhood. And then of course we love to see people feeling so connected to their community that they participate in more civic programs. So a couple of things about this map on the right-hand side. This is our redevelopment district. A couple of pieces to this that you might be interested in. Those hatch-marked areas are target neighborhoods within our urban renewal area for which we have tax increment districts and special redevelopment programs. But this entire neighborhood is what we consider our urban renewal area, and it's an area within which we have our older housing stock, we have a variety of housing types, but it's also one that we do an awful lot of support through our urban renewal program. The university district boundary is this notch that you see on the left-hand side, and essentially, if you can imagine the main campus where the student center is, there are 6 historic neighborhoods that all grew up at the same time as the college, and those are the 6 neighborhoods that surround the campus, and that's what we call the university district. It has kind of all those elements that are tied together and have as sort of a central focus the campus. So if you were to take this university district, you would just slot it right over into the redevelopment area, and it would just line up on that 23rd Avenue side. 4 of our top 10 employers happen to be located in the redevelopment district, and those include UNC, of course, NCMC Banner, School District number 6, and the City of Greeley are all the in our top 10 employers that also happen to be in this area. So that gave us kind of the beginning point of thinking, okay, we want to support the university district, but this larger area may make more sense to support because it's got probably more options for folks, and it also is connected to these areas. So what we decided to do is this area that you see in yellow, in blue, or teal is the same exact map that you had before. This is our redevelopment area with the university area notched in it. The university district is that blue area. And so we decided, we did lots and lots of research with other college communities, probably surveyed another 20 or 30 different college communities to see if they had programs like this. And we sort of plucked what we thought were the right things for Greeley and that would make sense for our area. And we thought this larger area would make sense because there's actually a good supply of single-family dwellings in the area. It's already a redevelopment area, so we've already got kind of a political boundary there that helps us have the rationale to do some additional work in here. And there's also lots of employer support with these 4 major employers for some program. So the program parameters that we set up is that for us to provide a homeownership program, it had to be for single-family homes only. Even though this has got a lot of rental property or folks that rent basements, we said we want this to be for single families only and not have it be an investor property. It's got to be owned by and occupied by the owner, so there would be no, I bought it, but I'm going to lease it to my kids or someone else. There's no income limits, and this is really important to us. We said, if we're going to, there's a lot of programs out there for low-income families, although they still struggle with home ownership, but we said we really are trying to stabilize the neighborhood, and so we want something that would be available for everybody from doctors to custodians, from teachers to police officers, for all those range of employees that we want, because our goal is to stabilize the neighborhood and create a really eclectic area where there's lots of different housing opportunities for lots of different workers. The only thing they have to do is they have to be able to qualify for a conventional or government loan, so that's the limitation that we have on this. They have to bring at least $1,000 of their own cash to the closing, so that's a part of their investment of equity. They have to be a full-time hire at the time that they apply. So in other words, if you're a full-time employee, as that business considers full-time, some of them consider 30 or 32 hours full-time. We don't quibble with that. We say whatever you consider full-time, you need to be full-time employed with that business at the time you apply. We know people move, things change, they can't necessarily stay at that employment, and that's not a condition of their continued employment at that area as much as their initial employment. And the loan assistance is this. We would provide anyone in this district up to $2,500, up to $6,000, depending on where they locate. So we have within this boundary, we said, there's some neighborhoods that are super stable as single-family neighborhoods, and those are generally the neighborhoods west of 11th Avenue. If you're looking at a home west of 11th Avenue, you're entitled to get $2,500. If you locate between 11th Avenue and 8th Avenue, where it starts to become a little bit more rental property, we'll let you have up to $4,000 for down payment assistance. And if you're even further east of that, where it's even more older housing stock and more rentals, then we'll give you up to $6,000 as part of your down payment assistance. When we started talking about this with the 4 employers, what the university said is, you know what, we'd like to sweeten the pot even more for our employees. And so if they locate anywhere in the blue area that we consider the university district, they're eligible for another $1,500 from the university, for a university employee. So they really wanted to make sure that they reinforced that, and they were providing that additional. Not a requirement that a university employee would have to live there. They can pick anywhere in this district, but if they choose that neighborhood, they have even a little more incentive. And then, because duration is the most important thing for us, we want people to kind of come and live and stay there for a while. We amortize this loan to them for down payment assistance by 20% a year. By the end of the 5th year, they don't owe anything back. If they should leave anytime before then, we prorate it based on how long they've been there. So again, you know, people have to move, they're going to sell their house, some things happen, but we'll kind of recognize for the period of time that they were there what the contribution to the neighborhood was. Some of the mechanics is we thought we'd start with $150,000, and the city had some carryover funds that weren't obligated yet, so we set that aside for this program. Because of the real positive response we've had to this, we were starting to run low on funds middle of last year, and the council said, we like the results that we're getting from this, so we have an additional carryover that's not obligated, so they doubled the amount, and we have now another $150,000 that's available. We have an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Greeley and the Greeley Urban Renewal Authority, and the Urban Renewal Authority administers the program, and then we contract with a third party to help with the mortgage connections. There's a group called Funding Partners that works out of Fort Collins. They do lots of mortgage support, and they have operated other kind of down payment assistance programs, so they were a good fit for us. They take a small percentage to make the payment. But they don't have to process any loans. All the main loan is happening through primary lenders, and we are just simply in addition to that, so we don't require them to fill out any more paperwork, to come up with any second sets of criteria, extra classes they have to take. We funnel everything through the primary lender, and we just become support for their down payment assistance. All the employees do, none of them have to contribute funds to the program, but what we do ask that they commit to is that they will promote this to their employees, they will respond to questions from the funding partners to affirm that they are full-time employees, and they'll help us follow up with survey information to see if that works. All of them have indicated if they did have additional revenues, they would be glad to support it further, but they just simply don't. We kind of obviously entered into this program at a time when schools and hospitals don't have lots of extra money for programs like this. We also provided a program orientation to the local real estate community. So for real estate professionals and lenders, we had a large group meeting and we said, okay, this is how this works. We've got this additional tool in the toolbox that you can use to provide housing to and attract folks to this neighborhood. We'd like you to help support it as much as you can. We had them simply sign a little form that said, I understand the parameters of the program, I promise to market it in accordance with those standards, and some of them have gone an extra step. One real estate company is offering a $500 deduction from their commission if you use their firm to locate these. Many of them have put little riders on top of their for sale signs that say GHOP eligible property and that sort of stuff. So many of them have taken that to heart and are really promoting them. What we do is we take this, these program professionals that have gone through this orientation and are willing to commit to this kind of support, and we put them on our webpage so that if you're brand new to Greeley or you're a new in faculty at UNC and you don't know where to start, you can get onto our webpage and kind of look through the names of realtors and see if there's any of them there that match maybe a company that you're interested in. Not required, it's just that these folks probably have a little bit more program information than somebody else. And we also want to support local folks. So we said these are all Greeley area or Northern Colorado based folks that are familiar with this program, do work in our town. They're not people from Texas or Denver or whatever, and that seemed to be important for a lot of folks too. In addition to that, we know that a lot of these homes are older homes that are probably needing a little love and a little improvement, and our Urban Renewal Authority has set aside also $150,000 from its reserves to be able to provide home improvement loans for folks. And this is at a 2% interest rate, so it's a little bit more affordable than you might get at a bank loan, but if you move into a property that's been used as a rental, it's probably a little beat up, might need some new wiring, new drywall, any number of things. And so for those kind of basic improvements, we will provide a loan if you're, again, we'll take a junior position on the loan, but it's one that seems to be helping a couple of the homeowners in there that purchased older homes that were a little needy. So how have we done? Here's some information that you might find helpful. The average loan amount is about $3,100 that we provide. The range of assistance, and I think this is helpful to see too, it's been as little as $2,076, even though they're eligible for $2,500, they didn't need that much. And we have gone all the way to the top of the $6,000. We only did that for one property, so it was pretty helpful there. And 8 loans have also gotten the UNC $1,500 bonus, so that's been well received. This is a number that I think is just so interesting. The range of home value goes from a low of $103,000 all the way up to $425,000. Of course, somebody who's got $425,000, you say they probably didn't need the down payment assistance, but they accessed it. And that was one of the things they said made them look in this neighborhood, kind of like, made you look, you know, so they've located here, and that's fine with us. We want people who are investing in the neighborhood, whether it's a doctor or, you know, a janitor. We're saying all of those people make the neighborhood interesting and make them stable. Our whole goal is to get people to live in the neighborhood, and this person was willing to commit to being there for 5 years as well and improving the property, so we thought that was interesting. We don't get very many at that range, but.
Can you remind me how long, these stats are from the start of the program?
Right. This
And
is
it started when? How old is your program?
So it's just
A couple, 2 years?
Okay.
Okay.
2 years. Average area median income, or that the average median income that people had. Most of the folks are right at 87% of the area median income, so they're just a little bit below par. Average loan to value is 87.9%, so it's obviously they're bringing money into the program. The average debt ratio is about 35% of their wages or their income in a month is spent on housing. Average family size is relatively small, about 2.1. There's 2 single-family homes. Single-parent households, just 2. First-time home buyer, almost half of them were first-time home buyers. Total number of individuals that have been served so far, 84 with about 22 kids in the homes. And the number of repayments, we've only had 2 of all the loans that we've done. Of the 40 loans that we've done, only 2 have had to sell their homes because they moved and needed to repay us. And we've had absolutely no losses. Every single one is, we have nobody who's delinquent, nobody who's behind in their payments, nobody who's walked away or tried to renege on any of that part of it. As far as where they are represented from, our homeowners are represented from each employee group. We have, actually it was sort of interesting that NCMC, Banner, and Citigroup, the low ones on this totem pole here, UNC it's done what we wanted. It's about 35% of them have found homes. And this is a really popular program. When new faculty come on board, we give them a tour around the community and we share this program. They're very eager to settle in and be part of the community. We think that's important. School district comes in at the next highest level with 1/4 of their employees, and then City Greeley at 22% and Banner at 17%. Banner was real slow getting started, and their promotion with their employee group seems to be picking up. We had, as I mentioned, 2 folks that have gotten the loans. So the other thing we wanted to do is, we know that we have some basic stats that we can get out of the program from working with funding partners and our folks, but we also send out a survey to homeowners after they've been in their homes for 6 months, and we said, here's some other information we're interested in that doesn't necessarily show up in statisticals. We don't require anybody to fill out the survey, but we've had pretty good response to it so far. So about half have returned the surveys. All 4 employee groups were included in the feedback we got. 68 of the folks that have signed up for this program are working in professional positions, 21 are in skilled trades. 53 have been with their employer just 2 to 5 years, but 26, almost 1/4 of them have been less than a year. So again, new employees and people who've been relatively recently attached to a business are our major participants. 89% indicate that this program was one of the reasons that they made their housing choice. So they could be anywhere in the city, but they decided that this down payment assistance program was actually what would make the difference in where they would decide to locate. So we feel that's a positive as well. And 84% say the program positively impacted their view of their employer. So back to that point about, is this something that employers can use for a recruitment tool? Absolutely. Employers are saying, the fact that my employer offers this program is a plus for me. I really maybe feel better that if it weren't for me working here, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. And we get lots of write-in comments about that. Another 84% say they intend to make improvements to both their home and their property. 100% of all the respondents said that they plan to make some improvements, but 84% said it's going to be outside and inside my home. We're really interested in making that happen. You can see that better than 1/3 of the residents are between 26 and 40 years, 25% are between 41 and 60, and 19 are the younger group. I might mention too, this is interesting, when we were asking where folks are coming from, the folks that were writing in on this surveys, many of them were from out of state, out of the area. Some of them were on the west side of Greeley and decided they wanted to move back to downtown area. So it was a real interesting mix when people said that they had made their decision. And it was mostly the older population, between 41 and 60, that were moving from other parts of the community or other towns. We had 2 that moved up here from Thornton, another from Denver, 1 from Fort Collins. We thought that was interesting as well. And the reason this affirmed that why it's so important to have an employer connection rather than just make this a general program is that almost 70% of the folks learn about this from their employer. So the employers become the major way that we communicate with those employees. They have these in their break rooms, they put them in their orientation packets. It becomes something that they communicate about with their folks. I think that's pretty positive. And why we decided to start with 4 major employers. This was a pilot, we weren't sure how well it would go, but when we were working with those 4 employers, they became our partners in not only trying to find support, something their employees would find helpful, but they became our partners in promotion and marketing, and we think that's made a big difference as well. A little bit about where you see the little houses on the map here, indicates where the home sales have occurred. What we're pretty pleased about is that you see houses everywhere in the district. So that tells us that the district boundaries are reasonable, that we have, as we certainly have the highest concentration happening in and around the college because those are the employers that are taking advantage of it. But it's down here by the mall, it's up by North Greeley in the downtown, it's out on the West 10th Street corridor. In each of those redevelopment areas, we're seeing really good participation. And this was as of 2016, so we will update this map again at the end of this year, and there'll be a doubling of the number of homes that you see shared there. Again, this wide variety offers probably more housing choice in terms of both income, but also we think people want choice in their neighborhoods. If you're not a university person, but you live in the downtown area, you probably are interested maybe in older homes, something that would fit your family's needs. And again, the number of homes that we sold will be very double that. As of just this month, we met last month, one thing that was happening after we wound up getting the program started, we had employees from different groups say, hey, is my employer a part of this program? Is there some way I can qualify for that? We actually invited 6 different employers to see if they would be willing to join us. It was all the charter schools. We invited the county, North Range Behavioral Health, and Sunrise Communities, which is a health agency that operates in the area as well as the Tribune. And we had Frontier Academy, Sunrise, and North Range all indicate that they would very much like to be a part of this. The others weren't opposed, they just didn't show up or express enough interest to come to the meeting. So we have added 3 more employers as of this month. We're already getting lots and lots of phone calls from those employees that are really excited about maybe having a chance to get a little bit of a start at home. And so from not only the phone calls that we've gotten, but the feedback from the agencies, they're saying this, even if nothing happens, if nobody buys a home, the positive goodwill that it's generated with their employees has been super well received for them. So our biggest challenge right now is inventory. There simply aren't lots and lots of houses that are within reach of some of these folks. So we know the down payment assistance is making a reasonable difference, but we could use about 100 more homes on the market that would help in this area to work out. But that's probably our biggest challenge right now. So with that, can I answer some questions for you or follow up on any of those?
I've got one. So you mentioned that the employment status is just based off their employment at the time of closing.
Right.
As far as making sure that it's owner occupied, how is that
Good question.
followed?
Really good question. That's real important to us. And so what we do is every year we send out a letter to the family and asking them to certify that they are in fact continuing to live there. They get their mail there, their taxes. We check a couple of different points, but it's usually self-identified. And they've all responded. We haven't had anything that even remotely looked like a problem with that. But we do it very intentionally.
Now, if someone came to you and said, hey, I'm taking a new job out of state, so we're stuck, but they want to keep it as a rental, do they have the option to basically pay back that down payment assistance just like they would if they were selling it and then just
Right,
keep
they would
that
be,
home as a
yeah,
rental?
okay. Yeah, they just simply owe us what they, for the period of time that they didn't live there. So if they move after 2 years, they get 40% credited towards their down payment because they lived there then, and then they pay the 60% of the down payment assistance back to us. So, and we've had 2 people do that.
Becky, I'm just curious, but do you get any static from the Greeley lending companies because you're going to Fort Collins for the loans?
No, because the loans are typically out of Greeley. So Funding Partners just manage them for us. They work with the mortgage holders and the lenders. I would tell you that the local lenders are the most flexible and supportive of the program. A couple of the national banks have rules and programs, and they're not overly receptive to anything that's a little bit different. But it's really the realtors that work it and make that work, or they'll say, you know what, if this is important to you for getting in, you may want to think about another lender, or you may want to see if we can talk them into what would it take for them to get comfortable with this as a program. But for the most part, people have been really receptive. It's a little bit more trouble for them to go to, but
You still have to prove an income, so I mean, it's still,
yep, it's pretty much very evidence-based kind of stuff that you get into.
What's the median price of homes in the district you're looking at?
It's a great question. I don't know that we've ever seen anyone estimate that, but I would say that the average home value for Greeley is around 250, 260,000 right now,
Okay.
and kind of creeping up. So in this neighborhood, I'm not sure if you're familiar with these areas, but the Hillside neighborhood is one that's got fairly modest post-World War II housing. We've got some older homes in and around the college area, but we've got some very nice homes. Alice Acres, Glenmere, Cranford neighborhood have some nicer homes too. The 10th Street corridor has probably vintage 1950s, 1940s homes.
250.
Mhm. Yeah, but
I'm
that's
just trying
250s.
to understand how a $3,000 loan assistance could help someone get in. If you probably 5% down? If you
They
five-
could, well, they're probably bringing more of their own equity, or own cash to the table.
One of the things I'm trying to decide here in our town, I've been talking to people, trying to decide, I've talked to police and fire and school district, and we have lost candidates because they can't afford housing. And I'm trying to find out, and we don't have a clear answer, I don't have a clear answer, is that people can't afford the down payment, or they can't come with a large enough down payment to afford the mortgage. So I'm still trying to figure out where we are.
Yeah, where that sweet spot is for folks to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's
So it
interesting.
sounds like $3,000 loan assistance makes a big difference for some people.
It appears to, and I think that's, for us, that's been encouraging because
Yeah,
that's not a huge amount per home, and they're bringing their own money in,
right.
and
So
they
they
may,
have some, right.
and because only about half of these are first-time home buyers,
Right.
that means that somebody's selling their home, they've got some equity, they're deciding, maybe they're even downsizing to get there, so.
So along those, I'm sorry, but along that question
Yeah.
that you just asked, Ken, I mean, it's obvious that this is a program that revitalizes the neighborhoods, but do you think it's also been that answer for affordable housing that all of our communities, are?
I think it's a start, because it's
Okay.
based on, again, for folks that we have some homes. For example, one of the things I should have mentioned is the homes can be condos, they can be townhomes, they can be single-family detached homes, they can't be mobile homes. We don't do that, but they have to be something that would be considered by a lender a single-family dwelling. So there's some flexibility. If you've got half a duplex and it's been demised as a townhouse, then you can purchase one half of that. And I would bet, to your point about affordable housing, that we'll see more and more opportunities for that. If we can get some, I think it's not too far in the future that we'll get the construction defects things figured out, and then we'll see more condos emerging out of some of our apartment projects.
Used to be that lenders would ask you, are you borrowing any part of your down payment?
Mhm.
How are you doing with that?
Oh, we're letting the mortgage companies handle that, so.
So some mortgage companies don't care
Mhm.
if they're getting a loan assistance.
Right, they just want to make sure that it's not, it depends on if it counts against their debt or if it's a subordinate loan of
Okay.
some sort.
That's good.
Yeah, that doesn't, we basically think they've got more money on the line than we do, so they're gonna make much more critical decisions about somebody's creditworthiness. It's creeping up a little bit. When we started the program, the percentage of an income that someone was spending on their home costs was more like 30%. Now it's about 35%. That's probably at the top end of where you want to go on some of these. Depends on, if you're fairly wealthy, then paying 35% probably doesn't matter, but if you're living hand to mouth, it's a little different.
Probably a sweet spot, because if you have a $250,000 home and 20% or more is what avoids a PMI mortgage insurance payment,
Right.
you're needing $50,000 down. This isn't really
Exactly.
stretching, that's
That's
what
what
you're
I'm saying,
saying.
3,000 isn't gonna make.
Well, and
much.
So it's an incentive, but I don't, there's a sweet spot and
Right.
probably a
Yeah.
lower side of things.
That's what did the numbers.
Yeah.
I would guess so too.
I think when you start looking into some of the other programs that you do where it's VA or FHA, where they will finance 100% of the home value, it's more just, is that mortgage payment
Right.
fitting into the debt to income ratio requirements? And so sometimes a difference, I've seen people where they're like, we need to get their insurance rate down $500 because otherwise they're not hitting those ratios right. So sometimes those small amounts can
Make a
a
difference.
big difference in getting it or not getting it, so.
I think it's that, and I think it's also, it sounds crazy, but it's almost the psychology of it as well. We think that this is a pretty important place to live, and we think it's valuable enough to offer an incentive. The
Yeah,
employers
right.
are promoting it. Certainly, if you're trying to get a ER nurse to live closer to town, and you're saying, no, I would love to give you those hours, and they're thinking, I can spend this much time pay my gas, driving back and forth from somewhere, or I can try to buy a house here.
It's one thing. We have police and fire who cannot afford to live here and have turned down jobs here. And the requirement is that they'd be within 30 minutes.
Mhm.
If there's a major emergency, 30 minutes is a lot.
Sure is, sure is. And we do have, we've had a police dispatcher and a police
Yeah.
officer that have both participated in the program. Lots of teachers, first time,
Yeah.
starting out teachers that are just,
I love that.
and those are teachers that are often on, even the first 3 years of their work, they're on probationary contracts, so the lenders are able to look past that. And we only allow one down payment assistance per home. We know there's in several cases many couples that are both working for one of these businesses, but they get one down payment assistance.
Was this program, and I'm sorry if you already asked this, but in this part of Greeley, was this people that just weren't owner occupied? So they were renting them out, to college students and, or whoever they could get to be in there for a period of time? And or was it people moving to the west side and can't sell their home? I wouldn't think that would necessarily,
Not so much that.
because I know there's been migration
Yep.
from, from the east to the west. So I don't know, I just thought I'd ask.
It is a good question. I think there's a couple things. We'd love to see more landlords deciding, oh, I'm tired of this, I'm gonna put this on the market and have it convert into a single family. But they seem to be more single family homes being bought for a single family purpose. There are some rentals. I can think of one that's in the Glenmere area where the woman who bought it's an attorney, and she's a single person, and it had been a rental before, and she said, this is my chance to I can step into this and have a nice home and kind of bring it up to the level that makes it more single family in nature, and less, get rid of all the extra doors in between places and all that kind of stuff. So there have been some of that, and we'd love to see more of it. In fact, that was probably one of the main reasons that we, as a university district, thought this would be an appealing program, because we'd like to make sure that balance of ownership and rental in and around the colleges is somewhat balanced and not too heavily rental. Because once you start losing a neighborhood to lots of rentals, it's just so hard to get back. And this was our way of trying to help that happen. So we think
It seems like for that reason, it's probably been definitely successful.
Yeah, and for certain around the area for the college, the area closest to the campus is probably the one that's the most vulnerable to that. So if you have about 50 to 60% in an area that's homeownership, that's a success as far as we're concerned.
Have you gotten any negative feedback from the public regarding, you're giving privilege to city employees and,
No, not at all. In fact, I think what we're saying is that a lot of folks are saying, well, if folks want to live in this neighborhood and we want, but more to your point, that we have a lot of folks in institutional organizations that don't make high enough wages that they can necessarily have a lot of choices in homes. And in this neighborhood, we have lots of variety of price value, and so those teachers and nurses and public servants can find a place, and we love those. And those folks in neighborhoods, their civic orientation is pretty high as well. So
during the 5-year term, do you place a forgivable lien or something on the
we
property
do.
then? Okay.
Yeah, we have a lien on the property, and it retires. We haven't had anybody live there quite long enough yet to get it completely expunged, but they're all, there's a forgiveness letter that each year they get that says you've now been forgiven down to this amount of the debt, and that's also the same time we do the ownership verification.
And then the URA handles the administration of that part of
Right.
things?
Right. They send out a letter with a notification of the ownership, but we collaborate with funding partners on making sure that we've got coordinated communication going out. But then we send out additional information on kind of welcome to the neighborhood, here's some things that you might want to get connected with. So we try real hard also to get them connected with our social media and all the programming that goes into people being a little bit more connected to their sense of place. And it's been real fun. Some people have sent us pictures of their garden that they put in their backyard and the kids working on stuff. It's been really rewarding from that standpoint, because you know what a difference a home makes. It's just, there's places that you live in, then there's your home. And, for families that have kiddos that they're raising, or they can finally have a dog, or whatever it is, that means a lot lot to them who've gotten that kind of feedback.
It sounds like it's creating a lot of pride in the district. and
Well,
that's-
we think it's a good start, and so we have about, we've got 40 homes that we've been able to loan on right now. We have probably about $125,000 left in the account, so we're gonna kind of watch it through. It takes about 2 years to get through that. If we see an explosion of that, I guess it'd be a nice problem to have, is that we would continue to find ways to do this. And if there's, other neighborhoods don't seem to be quite as needing this kind of an improvement, or, again, our goal was multi-purpose, it was also to support the employers that are down here.
That's what I was wondering, if, as you run out of inventory, do you anticipate ever expanding the district, or is
Yeah.
that pretty much?
At this point, I don't think so. I think that the character of the neighborhoods change outside this area, and it's kind of why it's an urban renewal area too. The housing stock's a little bit older, when you're gonna do a repair to an older house, sometimes you have to worry about asbestos and lead-based paint and old wiring, and if you got knob and tube wiring, you don't want that in there, and you got roofs that might be awkward angles. But it's also a chance for folks to develop community and neighborhood, and that's a part of it. We think it actually makes it safer when people move into a neighborhood and one person makes improvements in their home, then pretty soon, well, you know, maybe I can do that too. And the fact is, our urban renewal loans are not restricted to the GHOPE owners. We're making those available to anybody in this district, but we advertise it primarily to the GHOPE folks because they're the first ones who've kind of made a new investment.
So what city department oversees or manages this? Is it your planning
It-
department? or
No, it's our,
community
it's
relations?
through my department, through the city manager's office, but urban renewal is under my wing, and so
Oh.
that's why we have that kind of connection. I kind of drug it over with me when I came from community development.
Okay. And then this is maybe more a question for either Scott or Carlin. Do we know, or could we find what percentage of our single families are rentals, and then like where the highest density of those occur? Or do we have any stats like that, or could we get stats like that, or what would that take?
Well, it's really hard to tell who's living in their
Right.
homes.
Yeah.
That is a super question. I think if you find that answer, we would like to know
Okay.
how you find that out, because there really isn't a way. And probably the way we would track it is if, and I don't know if your utilities are the same way, you might be able to check through water taps.
That's what I was
So did you
thinking.
just make an assumption?
For where the
Because it
utility
was
bill's
a college
going.
area that most of
Oh,
those
we
were
make
rentals?
them-
or
No,
you
you
actually
sent us
said
information that talked about owners and
Oh,
visitors.
separate
Yeah.
account.
We get it, but we don't know
Same
which,
address.
I mean, it's in the census tract, so it's a
Okay.
pretty good
Trying to
size.
think of how we could-
Or if there's a separate account, we could look at that.
Mhm.
Yeah, utility
Medical
billing's about
data.
the only thing I would think.
Yeah.
It would give us an idea.
I mean, just so we could, I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
if
Get an
we're looking,
idea.
I mean,
Right.
so if we were to even look at something like this, like it would be, it would start the discussion of like where a zone or an area would be.
Right.
And it's not, I mean, and you could always start it here and expand. I mean, it sounds like though you created initial boundaries from the very beginning and
We
didn't
did, well, we
really-
already had our urban renewal authority established and the university district was in place. You know, another option, maybe your size town would make it possible for you to offer it citywide and not restrict it. You might restrict maybe what value of home
Right.
somebody could apply this to, because
Right.
the beauty of these kind of things is you can kind of pick and choose what makes sense for your town, your community, and say,
Sure.
well, if your police officers are not choosing to locate here because they can't find housing, then
We don't care where they live.
maybe you don't care where they live as long as they
Right.
locate.
So
where
first
they
step is identify what's the problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, and part of what you were dealing with, not a problem, but you wanted to renew certain neighborhoods. So that was kind of the mission. So we'd have to identify what is it we're trying to accomplish. If it's renewing a neighborhood, or is it providing affordable housing
Employer
for
connection,
certain
yeah.
groups of people? Yeah.
Is there any way to help out a prospective employee, like as a, you know, this doesn't go down this route, but I'm talking about like
Yeah.
being able to advertise, you know, we just hired you for Public Works, or, you know, you're our newest police officer or something like that. We'd like you to live in Windsor.
Right.
Is there some kind of program that we could offer them to lure them to move from, like,
Right.
the newest officer lived like in Johnstown? Is there something we could
Some
do
school
to?
districts would provide moving expense. You know, there's different things you can do to help entice someone to
Right,
come to your
right.
community.
And
Yeah,
I know some of the mountain communities do provide
right.
that employee assistance, whether it's through their own affordable housing that they have, or
Right.
through, you know, support, low income, low interest loans to their employees, and it's all done through the
Mhm,
municipality. But I know a lot of mountain communities do that.
See, because I know just having an officer,
Yeah.
and somebody having an officer that lives next door, whatever, the whole neighborhood or the houses all the way around feel safer just for knowing.
Chief Klimek I talked to him about this, and, having police officers live in town, the
Uh-huh.
cars parked there, it's another benefit.
Uh-huh.
Some police officers and some teachers don't want to live in the same community. Okay, but that's choice. But that's choice.
Right.
Funny.
Chief Braden and I had a long conversation, and one of the questions I asked him when, his people who want to live here and can't, or candidates he's lost, is it the down payment, or is it the mortgage? I mean, of course, the more
Mhm.
down payment you have, the less your mortgage is.
Sure.
And he asked a couple of his people, one of them did respond to me in an email. They were okay to getting into the home, but as time has gone on, school bond issue, rising taxes has made an impact on them now.
Well, and if their home's appraising for more, the taxes are gonna
Right,
go up.
appraisal's gone up too. so
Which is
that's-
what, ideally any
That's an issue
homeowner
we're dealing
wants,
with
right?
this, the whole town here,
Yeah.
yeah, so it still is back to the median cost of a home in Windsor was $347, it's probably higher than that now. And so I don't know if we have much inventory in the 250 range or.
Well, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, we've got the same challenge when it
Yeah.
comes to inventory, because
Yeah.
all of the homes in the core area of
Right.
town get snapped up pretty quickly at
Right.
market rate.
Yep.
And they're not too much less than homes that are even right outside that. I mean,
Yeah, and we have, I'm not just, we have lots of people that are in this situation, but I just kind of the last few weeks looked at police, fire, and teachers, starting salaries for them are pretty, pretty difficult to qualify for a $350,000 home. That's the median. So again, we're back to the inventory, which leads me to another question I'm going to be asking more about as we're doing more multifamily. I keep asking, what's the price going to be? And the answer is always market. So I want to probe a little further about what's market price per square foot on multifamily.
What's your multifamily vacancy right now? Is it tight?
Well, first, we don't have
We don't
that
know.
big an inventory of multifamily. We're just,
Yeah,
in the last couple of years, really have seen that take off. So we'll have a lot of new multifamily units come online here in the next few months, starting in Water Valley South and some other areas, but it'll be interesting to see how fast those absorb, because we have approved quite a few multifamily units lately, still not anywhere near what we need to diversify, but
Well, that's one of the things that we're doing is a kind of a combination strategy too, because we're looking to see what we can do to stimulate some more multifamily, particularly in the
Right.
same neighborhood, with the idea that if we could get more choices for people to live in nice
Exactly.
multifamily, they won't live in homes, which would then
Right.
be available for purchase, which, that kind of domino.
Right.
So I do think you almost have, at least for
Yeah.
us, that's one of the things we're looking at, is how do we look at a combination of ways to,
but they still run multifamily like it's a private enterprise anyway. I mean, if the market says average rent's $1,200,
And
somebody might be paying just as much, but they don't have to come up with the down payment. So
and
it's,
sometimes they may be paying more
right,
than a home mortgage.
because they don't have to come up with the down payment. That's right.
Right.
And the flexibility to move, it's,
Right.
but it, like we saw in our packet, for our meeting tonight,
Right.
it's a paradigm shift of the generation. Because the millennials don't want to be tied down, overall as a generation. They want the flexibility to go, oh, my lease is done, see, I'm gone, and, it brings on a whole different
That's
societal.
right.
Well, I think one of the things we're gonna start to see as home values continue to climb is, I think it's gonna be a very slow process, but I think the lending community is gonna have to adjust and start going, okay, instead of a typical 30-year mortgage, maybe we're gonna start doing 40-year. I mean, you look at the San Francisco area, mortgage out there is a 100-year mortgage in some places. And it's not that they think you're actually gonna ever pay it for 100 years and pay it off, but,
I plan to
when
live
it's,
to 100.
when a standard home that here would be 350, out there is 1.2
Right.
million, no one could ever afford it on a 30-year mortgage.
That's right.
So they put it
That's
on a
interesting.
100-year mortgage, then it's an affordable mortgage payment, you're still building equity in it.
Yeah.
You just know, there's no paying it off, it's just I'm gonna have this much equity when I sell it.
mortgage burning parties for you.
The nice thing about that is the value of home ownership, because there is a different civic mindset. If I own my property, I'm part of this community,
Right.
That's been one of my things. A lot of the people who work in town here can't afford to be here. And I always say, we're losing that human resource.
Oh, yeah.
These are great people who want to be part of our community. And they're here for 8 hours a day, but we need them here on nights and weekends. And,
Right,
you
yeah.
know,
So I want to thank you for taking the
Yeah.
time to come this evening and share this program with us. Adam, any final questions before? Okay, future meetings, so,
So there's nothing until, I handed out the list that I've kind of like put these, so this I handed out, this page, that I kind of listed out, the department heads had listed when they wanted to have their items.
Thank you so much.
yeah.
We still want to Thursday.
Just laid it out for you to see, hopefully we can plug some of these dates in. Something we'll start working on, so we've got in January, Terry has a grease program and enforcement policy for restaurants, we'd like to do that in January. We've had some real problems with some of our restaurants and their grease systems and how it gets into our system, and so he is looking at, a new policy, create some enforcement options and things like that. And the town attorney's asked for the Downtown Development Authority backlots eminent domain issue to be brought to the town board as a work session. He wants to make sure you understand the resolution really well before that goes before town board for action. I'm checking in on the public, so looking down at the not assigned, looking at that Public Works project final report, I've put an email out to Will Welch. He had a death in the family, so was gone for a little while, and he's back now. Because I thought maybe that might be a good January item, kind of get an update, even, because we do have some of those quotes out to
Or if
FCI.
we could tie it into the grease program if we don't have other things, because Terry had said that's not going to be.
That's not gonna be a full night,
very,
no. So we might be able to do that
discussion.
for January and tie it in with grease. So, golf, yes, the road improvement plan prioritization.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Okay, we
Sir,
can,
Who's
Mike just says
requesting
be-
golf carts?
that is Chief Klimick.
I thought we already talked about that with the UTV, or is this?
Yeah, well, so this is golf carts.
So is he getting another, or
Yeah,
you
he's-
just need to
yeah,
finalize something about?
Yeah, so there was, apparently, they are requesting expansion of their current area, and he feels it's enough of a discussion item that he wants to make sure that he can present everything to you during a work session. Make sure it's something you really want to proceed with. He can approve those administratively, I think, at some point in time, but I think when I talk to him, it's just enough of an expansion and trying to go over some roadways that maybe shouldn't be, so he just wants to make sure you're fully apprised of that plan. So I can go on ahead and try to plug some of these in and send an email out to you guys later next week, and you can take a look at it. I assume you want to talk about primary workforce housing some more, based on the last 2 work sessions.
Yes.
Scott can put some data
We need to
together.
see what we want to do now that we've had these.
Right, so we
work
can bring that
sessions,
back to
where we
work
go, and
session.
What else do we need to see, if anything, or
Right,
decide on, and
so it could just be a short topic, but I think to give staff some direction on how to move forward with that. And then I have not gotten information on the next code update meeting yet.
and one other caveat.
Yes.
Before we bring that gentleman in here on Wednesday.
Yes.
I want to make sure he's not planning to apply for the position.
I've already asked him that, and he said no.
Okay.
I
Because-
made that
because I
clear
think
from
the
the
board has
beginning.
kind of made that decision, and we.
But after a good tour with Patty for a couple hours, they might change their mind.
I'm like, I couldn't let go of these things.
She gives it one hell of a
Well,
And I just
it's marketing our community, I love this.
Dennis is calling to set up that meeting with Bro on the
Yes.
water discussion that we
Yep, and
chatted about. Okay.
so he sent me a couple dates, I checked your calendar and didn't see anything really glaring. I said, I need some succinct dates and times.
Because I just
to
spoke
base
with
it
them
on.
and told them they would be hearing from him
Yes.
and. blah,
Yep,
blah.
Dennis is working on that.
Hey, I also wanted to let everybody know from our board meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, where we had the anti-oil and gas people that came.
Be
and-
careful, or he's-
Well, no, I'm not coming against it at all. I'm just saying that they, the fire department, is receiving a lot more flare calls.
Yeah.
That they've had to respond to, so I don't,
They're trying to come up with a
Yeah.
strategy on how to deal with that a little bit. I
Yeah.
sent you guys out some emails. I'm
Yeah.
trying to follow up with that as Herb sends me information, or I hear things in the community, I'm trying to follow up to keep you guys in the loop, so you know what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, all right.